February was a tough month for me, and maybe it was for you as well. At least for me, it was definitely because of how choppy the days have been. So I hope what I'm about to share with you all will save your accounts from being destroyed like mine from all the choppy days. If you look over here, 4 out of 6 of my DLL days were because I couldn't deal with the volatility chop. This is an example from February 17th where I hit DLL. If you look over here, you can see 15 overlapping bars. That was insane. I tried to get in the middle of all that. I got crushed because the market was moving a lot, but it didn't really go anywhere. It was just so whippy, and I didn't wait for my setups. I was just trying to force things. You can see over here that pace is going pretty quickly, but no candles really get any continuation at all. These type of days really fucked me up. When I was looking back at my data, I saw that my win rate dropped below 25% if there were more than 10 overlapping 1 minute candles without any continuation. So something I'm working on, hopefully this is helpful for other people, is that if I start to see 10 to 15 overlapping 1 minute bars, it's going to shift my perspective a little bit on how the market is moving. And maybe it's transitioning from choppy instead of trending. When I started noticing this, I either have to wait for a breakout of the range or play the edges of that choppy range. This is actually the moment I should have waited for. You can see over here that there's some really big buying coming in here. There's 2 delta flips that are coming in, and buyers are just not getting any continuation from there. Try to push it up one last time, and then the sellers really just step on the gas and run them over. And this is finally when we break away from the chop. Even if you don't get in over there, at least this is like some confirmation as we're moving away from the chop. There's a lot more opportunities to get in when the market's a lot more clear. So let's go into some examples of how we're going to avoid chop moving forward. All right, quick overview of what we're looking at today. Ton of overlapping bars. We're just seeing that there's no continuation out of the way, and we're kind of stuck in this like 70 point range. So the UOP has held 5 times already, and I'm looking at it like, okay, let's see if it holds a 5th time. Wanting to see if we actually hold this. If sellers fail again here, I'll probably play the bottom of the range and then take it to IB again, where we've been seeing a lot of resistance. Sellers are pushing this down from 840 and are continuing to push here at 843 with pace picking up. You can see the buyers unwound a little bit of that selling. If you look over here, you see that there's negative 104 delta, but we closed at negative 39. So small unwind, nothing significant enough for me to want to pull the trigger. At 845, you can see buyers getting a little bit more aggressive here and the speed picking back up with some positive delta coming in. Now I'm watching to see if they can get any continuation so I can enter above that prior bar. Entered here as I see more buying coming in at the 40s. Of course, as soon as I enter, there is no continuation. I start taking some heat. As I'm sitting through this trade, I'm ready to kind of scratch out on the trade because I haven't really gotten any like positive MFE out of it. If this 8:49 a.m. bar can't hold above UOP, I'm essentially going to close out of this trade. Once I see the pace pick up again at 850 in the 40s again, especially, I'm like, all right, let me try to get in here and set a limit order to get filled. From there, we just see some sustained pace and from the buying, and now we're off. At this point, I'm just managing the trade, watching to see what happens. After I hit TP there, move my stop up to break even just to protect my P&L, my mental, just in case. Selling's coming in here, but they don't really get anything out of it. So I'm moving my stop up to the bottom of that candle, and then real big push through IB right there. Pretty glad I took off my TP here and not hold it for a runner just because the day was so choppy. And then as you'll see in a few seconds, after I take my TP off, market just like kind of dies out a little bit and rotates back through the range again. So I'm like, all right, cool, got out of this. On this next example, you can see that the market is just chopping in this 40-point range here, which really sucked. And it was a disgusting morning. So we spent a whole hour here just doing a bunch of nothing before price eventually finally broke out. So as I'm watching price come back into retest that consolidated area, I'm starting to see some buying come in. I'm like, oh shit, okay, there's some buying stepping. I want to kind of follow that. Got a nice delta flip there where sellers failed to push back into the consolidation. And now I'm trying to enter above that bar. Kind of had some FOMO, so I eventually just ended up chasing it instead, which was not a great idea. At this point, I'm already kind of in the trade. I don't want to like chop myself up, and I would have had the entry I wanted, but that's what I get for FOMOing. At this point, I'm just watching the trade and trying to manage it, think about my life choices and why it's so dumb to FOMO as price is moving around. Just kind of watching to make sure I don't see anything that's like an order flow outlier that's going to make me want to get out of the trade. There's 2 really big buy attempts here. But since today is so choppy, I'm not going to put too much weight into it. I'm just going to kind of watch to see what happens. I actually am moving my TP around a little bit because it's hard to trust any move, and I don't want to overset my welcome. I'm like, oh shit, like, is this going to work out? I'm not really sure. Now at this point, I'm like, oh man, like they barely missed my TP. Should I have taken it off? And I'm like, so as I see this selling coming in right here, I'm ready to pull the trigger and just exit out of the trade completely if they get any continuation. But we're starting to build above them. So I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I'm like, all right, let's see. I'm feeling pretty good. Like we're going to hit my TP here. So I'm just holding on. Trading and chop is just never really good, and it kind of like destroys your confidence. So even though this is like a way to kind of alleviate it, it's still never nice or fun to trade in chop. But if you do find yourself trading on a choppy day, try to at least remember the overlapping rule. So the way I'm basically trying to approach it as a recap is, if I'm starting to see 15 bars overlap, I gotta go hands off, not touch anything, and wait for either a breakout of that range for a retest or play the edges of that range. So really not playing anywhere in the middle, trying to make sure I take the edge, and only take trades from really like the bottom or tops of those ranges. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we shouldn't be chop trading at all, but at least this will help as maybe a bit of a fail safe, or give you something that you can do in between to like not destroy your account. Not saying it's perfect and it hasn't always worked for me, but it's at least something I'm trying to implement more and more. Curious to hear how you guys avoid chop trading. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and would love to see if I can learn something from you all.